The house had changed, though not in ways that could be measured by blueprints or contractor invoices. The walls no longer sagged, the floors were level, and the plumbing no longer hissed like a creature with a vendetta. But beneath the fresh paint and reinforced beams, something lingered, a quiet hum of memory, woven into every floorboard and joint. It was as if the house itself remembered what had happened within its walls. I stood at the foot of the staircase, fingers curled around the banister, tracing the smooth grain of the wood. I had spent months rebuilding this place. But it wasn't just the structure that had been altered. I had changed too, not in the way I once imagined, stronger, more confident, but in a quieter, more complicated way. The kind of change that settled deep in the bones, reshaping how one moved through the world. I still woke early, before the alarm, before the sun even considered rising. Some habits never left me. But now, instead of pacing the living room, I found myself wandering from room to room, running my hands along freshly painted walls, listening to the house breathe. It no longer groaned under its own weight, but it still whispered secrets in the dark. And sometimes, when the wind rattled the windows just right, I thought I heard laughter. Low, warm, familiar. Lucas had been gone for weeks now, chasing snowboarding season in Colorado, leaving behind nothing but memories and an empty driveway. I told myself I was fine with that. I had always preferred solitude anyway. And yet, there were moments, small, insidious moments, when I caught myself looking for signs. A misplaced tool on the porch, the scent of sawdust lingering in the air, a phantom voice calling out from the attic. But there was nothing. Only silence. And maybe that was better. Maybe I needed time to adjust. To remember who I was before he walked through the door, with that easy smirk and those knowing eyes. I had built this house with my own hands, after all. Or at least helped rebuild it, and I had done it without him. Still, the ache remained. Echoes in the empty spaces, the days settled into a rhythm that felt almost normal. I kept busy, tidying up loose ends, organizing tools, checking off tasks from a list I hadn't realized I'd been compiling until now. There was something comforting about the routine, the predictability of it all. I told myself that was enough, that I didn't need anything else. But the house, despite being structurally sound, still carried the weight of what had happened here. Every hallway, every creaking stair, every patch of drywall I had helped sand down. It all held a piece of Lucas. The indentation in the couch cushion where he used to sit, feet propped on the coffee table, flipping through old architectural magazines. The faint smudge of fingerprints on the window pane where he'd leaned against it, watching the rain fall. Even the scent of sawdust and citrus clung to the air, stubbornly refusing to fade. It was ridiculous, really. He hadn't lived here. He had only worked here. And yet, his presence had seeped into the very bones of the house, just like mine had. We had rebuilt it together, side by side, and in doing so, we had built something else. Something unnamed, unspoken. Something that lingered long after he was gone. I tried not to think about it. Tried not to let my mind wander back to that moment in the hallway. The heat of his body pressed close, the way his lips had felt against mine. I had kissed him back. I had wanted to. And yet, I had let him leave without saying a word. Without asking if he would come back. Without telling him that I missed him already. I hated that part most. The silence. The way I had let him walk away without trying to stop him. I told myself it was for the best. That I wasn't ready for whatever this was. That I didn't know how to navigate feelings like these, tangled and unfamiliar. But deep down, I knew the truth on. I had been afraid. Afraid of needing someone. Of letting go of the control I had spent years clinging to. So instead, I buried myself in work. I pored over blueprints, checked load calculations, made sure every beam, every support, every joint was exactly where it should be. If the house was solid, then maybe I could be too. Maybe I could convince myself that I didn't need anything else. But the house still whispered. A quiet morning. The morning started like any other. I woke before the alarm, the house still wrapped in the hush of early light. For a moment, I lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft tick of the radiator warming up. No dreams. No lingering thoughts. Just the steady rhythm of my breath and the quiet hum of the house settling around me. I swung my legs over the edge of the bed, rubbed my face, and reached for my robe. The floorboards creaked beneath my weight. Not the ominous groans of before, but the familiar sighs of a home that had been given new life. I padded downstairs, the cold tile of the kitchen floor pressing against my bare feet, and set about making coffee. The machine whirred to life, filling the space with the rich aroma of ground beans and hot water. I leaned against the counter, watching the stream of black liquid fill the carafe, and tried not to think about the fact that I had gotten used to having someone else in the kitchen with me. Someone who leaned against the doorway with sleep, tousled hair, and a smirk, watching me fumble through the motions of waking up. Stop it, I told myself. You're fine. You don't need anyone else. I poured a mug, added cream, and took a slow sip. Perfect temperature. Perfect strength. Just the way I liked it. Except, somehow, it felt wrong. I shook the thought off and grabbed a banana from the bowl on the counter. As I peeled it, I wandered into the living room. Stepping carefully over the rug I had finally decided to keep, the furniture was arranged the way I wanted it now. No more awkward angles or half-finished projects cluttering the space. Everything was clean, ordered, exactly how I liked it, and yet the house still felt too quiet. I sat on the couch, sipping my coffee, staring at the blank television screen. My laptop sat beside me, awaiting for me to start reviewing the latest batch of structural reports. But I couldn't bring myself to open it. My mind drifted instead to the unfinished wall in the hallway. The one we had patched together. The drywall was smooth, the paint seamless, but I still remembered the way Lucas had leaned in close, his breath warm against my ear. God, I missed him. I exhaled sharply, shaking my head. This wasn't supposed to happen. I had built this house with my own hands. I had done everything alone. I didn't need anyone else. But the silence stretched on, heavy and unrelenting. And for the first time since he left, I wasn't so sure I believed it. The weight of silence, by the time the weekend rolled around, the quiet had become unbearable. I had filled my days with small tasks. Checking the gutters, tightening loose screws on the railing, inspecting the newly installed electrical outlets. But none of it distracted me from the emptiness that had settled in my chest. The house was perfect now, stable, secure, and yet I felt more unsettled than ever. On Saturday morning, I forced myself outside. The air was crisp, carrying the faint promise of spring, and the neighborhood buzzed with the sounds of life. Children laughing somewhere down the street, the distant rumble of a lawnmower, the occasional chirp of birds testing their luck against the unpredictable weather. I stood on the porch for a while, letting the cool breeze wash over me, before grabbing my keys and heading toward town. I told myself I was going for groceries, that I needed eggs, milk, bread, practical things, necessary things, but halfway to the store, I realized I had no idea what I actually needed. I just needed to move, to do something, anything. The drive was short, the streets mostly empty at this hour, and I parked near the edge of the farmer's market square. It was still setting up, vendors arranging crates of produce, hanging colorful banners, adjusting tables weighed down by baskets of fruit. I wandered through the stalls, trailing my fingers over rough-hewn wooden crates, inhaling the mingling scents of citrus and earth. And then I saw him. Not Lucas, never Lucas, but someone who looked like him. Tall, broad-shouldered, dark hair curling at the nape of his neck. The man turned slightly, shifting a box of apples onto the table, and for a heartbeat, my breath caught in my throat. Then he looked up, smiled at me, and I realized, with a sharp pang of disappointment, that he wasn't Lucas at all. I muttered an apology and turned away, walking faster now, my pulse hammering against my ribs. What the hell was wrong with me? I had convinced myself that I was fine, that I was handling this better than expected. But apparently, all it took was a passing resemblance and a fleeting smile to unravel me completely. I ended up at a small cafe across the street, ordering a coffee I didn't want, and sitting at a corner table, staring at nothing in particular. The barista called out names in a sing-song voice, steam hissing from the espresso machine, and somewhere in the background, a couple laughed, their voices light and easy. I envied them. Not because they were happy, not because they were together, but because they weren't me. They weren't stuck in this limbo between wanting something and not knowing how to reach for it. I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to take a sip of the coffee even though it tasted bitter and wrong. I missed him. God, I missed him, and I had no idea what to do about it. The house remembers back home. The silence was louder than ever. I locked the door behind me, the click echoing through the empty hallway like a finality I wasn't ready for. The house should have felt different, new, improved, finished, but instead, it felt hollow, like it, too, was waiting for something. I wandered through the rooms, fingertips grazing the walls, as if I could draw some kind of comfort from the solidness of them. But the sensation only reminded me of how much effort it had taken to get here. How many nights I had spent alone, poring over blueprints, calculating load distributions, reinforcing beams. I had built this place with my own hands. I had done it alone. So why did it feel like I had lost something in the process? I stopped at the base of the stairs, staring up at the landing where Lucas had once crouched, prying up a warped floorboard, muttering about termite damage. I could still see him there, shirt dusted with sawdust, sleeves rolled to his elbows, the muscles in his arms flexing as he worked. He had always moved with such certainty, as if he knew exactly where he belonged in any given space. I envied that. I envied him. My phone buzzed in my pocket, pulling me from my thoughts. I pulled it out, expecting another automated email or reminder about a meeting. But instead, I saw a name flash across the screen. Lucas Rise. My breath hitched. For a moment, I just stared at the screen, heart pounding in my ears. Then, slowly, I tapped the message open. Hey, just checking in. Hope the house is treating you well. That was it, just a simple text. Friendly, casual, and yet, it sent a jolt through me, sharp and unexpected. I read it again. And again. He was thinking about me. I didn't know whether to be relieved or terrified. I stood there, frozen, my thumb hovering over the keyboard, unsure of what to say. Should I respond? Did I want to? Could I pretend that nothing had changed? That I hadn't spent the last few weeks trying and failing to forget him? I swallowed hard and typed out a reply. Yeah, house is good, solid. Thanks. It sounded stiff, awkward, pathetic. Before I could second guess myself, I hit send. Then I waited. And waited. Nothing. Just the silence of the house, the echo of my own uncertainty. I exhaled sharply and shoved the phone back into my pocket. This was stupid. I was stupid. I had spent so long convincing myself that I didn't need anyone, that I could handle everything on my own. And maybe I could. Maybe I had proven that. But then why did it feel like I was missing something essential? Why did it feel like the house, this house I had fought so hard to restore, was reminding me of everything I had let slip away? A familiar voice. I didn't expect a response. Honestly, I barely expected Lucas to check his messages at all. He had said he was heading west, chasing snowboarding season in Colorado. It wouldn't surprise me if he had disappeared into the mountains, working on houses in remote towns, forgetting about the ones he had left behind, including me. So when my phone buzzed again less than 5 minutes later, I startled. I hesitated before opening the message. My thumb hovered over the screen, pulse ticking fast in my throat. Good to hear, missed working on it. That was all. Just 4 words, and yet they unraveled me. I read the sentence again, slower this time, letting the weight of it settle in my chest. He had missed working on it. On my house. Or was it something else? Was it possible he meant more than that? No, don't do this. Don't read into it. I squeezed my eyes shut, dragging a hand down my face. I had spent the last few weeks trying to convince myself that this, whatever this was, had been a fluke, a temporary lapse in judgment brought on by stress, exhaustion, and proximity. Lucas had been here, working alongside me, fixing the house, fixing me, and I had misread the signals. I had let myself believe there was something real between us, when in reality, he had probably just been doing his job. And now, he was gone. So why was he texting me? I should ignore it, pretend I hadn't seen it. Let the conversation die before it even started. Instead, I typed back without thinking, missed working with you. As soon as the words left my fingers, I regretted them. Too honest. Too vulnerable. I cursed under my breath and dropped the phone onto the couch like it had burned me. What was I doing? Why did I feel like I was standing on the edge of something huge, something terrifying? Because I knew what this was. I knew what this meant. I was falling. And I didn't know how to stop. A thread between us. The phone buzzed again before I could talk myself out of checking it. Didn't think you'd miss me, engineer. I exhaled sharply, a laugh slipping out before I could stop it. Typical Lucas. Always teasing. Always keeping things light. Even when the subtext threatened to pull us both under. I shouldn't respond. I really shouldn't. And yet, my fingers moved on their own. Don't flatter yourself. Just missed having someone around who knows what they're doing. There was a pause. Long enough that I started convincing myself he wasn't going to reply, that I had ruined the thread between us with my usual self-sabotage. Then the screen lit up again. Sure. Keep telling yourself that. I rolled my eyes, but my chest tightened in a way that had nothing to do with frustration. This was dangerous. Talking to him again, even like this, even through text, was dangerous. Because it was too easy to fall back into the rhythm of our conversations, the easy familiarity, The way he could make me forget how to be guarded. I should end it. Walk away before I got in deeper. But I couldn't. Not yet, so instead, I typed back, fingers trembling slightly. "You're impossible." His reply came instantly. Says the guy who bought a house that nearly collapsed on him. I snorted, shaking my head. It was charming. It was a death trap. It was worth it. A beat passed. Then, yeah. Guess it was. Something about that simple statement made my stomach twist. Not in a bad way. Not in a way I could explain. I stared at the screen for a long time. The glow of the phone casting shadows across the room. The house was silent around me, but inside everything felt loud. Too loud. Because I knew what this was. Knew what this conversation was leading to. I had spent weeks pretending I was okay with the way things ended. With the way he had walked away, and I had let him. But I wasn't okay. And maybe neither was he. The space between words, I stared at the screen, the glow of the phone warm against my palm. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something shift inside me. Not relief, not excitement. Something heavier, more uncertain. Lucas had responded. He had wanted to respond. That had to mean something, right? I swallowed hard and typed again before I could talk myself out of it. "Why are you texting me?" It was blunt. Direct, probably too much. But I couldn't help it. I needed to know, needed to understand why, after weeks of silence, he had reached out now. The seconds stretched between us, each one feeling longer than the last. My pulse thudded in my ears, my breath caught in my throat. Then finally, "I don't know, wanted to." That was it. Just 2 sentences. But they hit me harder than I expected. Wanted to. I closed my eyes, exhaling slowly. That answer should have frustrated me. It was vague, evasive. But instead, it made my chest tighten in a way I didn't understand. Because I knew exactly what he meant. I had wanted to reach out too. Had wanted to call him, to ask how he was, to say something. Anything. That would bridge the distance between us. But I hadn't. I had let the silence stretch on, convincing myself that it was easier this way, that it was safer. Maybe I had been wrong. I opened my eyes and stared at the message again. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. The weight of everything I wanted to say pressing down on me. I could end this. Could let the conversation drift into comfortable ambiguity. Let the moment pass without pushing further. Or I could say something real. I took a slow breath. Then I typed, "I missed you too." There. I had said it. Now there was no taking it back. The weight I set the phone down. Like putting it on the couch cushion would somehow lessen the weight of what I had just said. "I missed you too." 3 little words, simple, honest, terrifying. I had meant them, every syllable. And yet, saying them out loud, even through text, felt like stepping off a ledge with no idea how far I had to fall. I paced the living room, my hands restless, my mind racing. The house felt smaller now, the walls pressing in with the weight of my own vulnerability. I had spent so long building up defenses, constructing emotional barriers brick by brick, and now, with just a handful of messages, I had knocked one down. Would he respond? That question circled in my head, relentless, as the seconds ticked by 5, 10, 20, each one stretching longer than the last. I told myself not to panic. Told myself that maybe he was busy. That maybe he was driving. That maybe he was reading my message over and over, just like I had done with his. But the silence was suffocating. I glanced at the phone. Still dark. Still nothing. I dragged a hand through my hair, exhaling sharply. I had known this might happen. Known that reaching out, admitting how I felt, could lead to rejection, or worse, indifference. And yet, I had done it anyway. I dropped onto the couch, leaning forward with my elbows on my knees, staring at the device like I could will it to light up. "Come on, Lucas. Say something. Anything." A response. Finally, the phone buzzed. I lunged for it before the vibration had even finished, my heart slamming against my ribs as I unlocked the screen. "Damn, Ethan. You gonna kill me or what?" I blinked at the message, my brain struggling to catch up. Kill him? What? Oh, right. I had just admitted that I missed him. That I wanted to talk to him. That I had spent the last few weeks pretending I was fine with him being gone when, in reality, I had been unraveling without him. And he was joking. I wasn't sure if I wanted to laugh or punch him through the phone. I exhaled, shaking my head, and typed back, "You're impossible." His reply came instantly. "Yeah, but you like it." I rolled my eyes, even though I could feel the tension in my chest loosening, just slightly. He wasn't ignoring me. He wasn't brushing me off. He was here, responding like nothing had changed. Like we hadn't spent weeks apart. Like we weren't treading dangerously close to something neither of us had figured out how to define. And maybe that was the point. Maybe he didn't want to define it either. I bit my lip, hesitating for only a second before typing again. Do you miss it? Working on the house, I mean. I watched the screen, waiting for the typing indicator, my breath catching in my throat. After a moment, his response appeared. Yeah, more than I thought I would. I swallowed hard. That was more than I had expected. More than I had hoped for. I didn't know what to say next. Didn't know how to untangle the mess of emotions twisting in my gut. Relief, confusion, aching familiarity. So I asked the only thing that made sense. Will you come back? The second the message sent, I regretted it. It was too much, too direct, too raw. I squeezed my eyes shut, bracing myself for silence, for rejection, but the phone buzzed again. And this time, my heart stopped altogether. The answer depends. Would you let me? The words hit me like a physical force, knocking the air from my lungs. I stared at the screen, rereading the message over and over, as if it might change, as if I had misinterpreted it. But no, it was clear. Lucas wasn't just considering coming back, he was asking if I wanted him to. I swallowed hard, my fingers trembling as I typed my response. Yes, one word, simple, final, and yet, it felt like the biggest decision I had ever made. I hit send before I could second guess myself. The wait was unbearable. Seconds ticked by, stretching into eternity. My pulse pounded in my ears. My palms were damp against the phone's surface. Then, finally, all right, I'll be back in a few weeks. A rush of warmth flooded my chest. Relief, excitement, a strange, overwhelming sense of rightness. He was coming back. Lucas was coming back. I didn't know what that meant. Didn't know what would happen when he walked through the door again. When we were face to face after all this time. But I knew one thing for certain. I was ready to find out. A house waiting. The house felt different now. Lighter, somehow. Like it had been holding its breath for weeks, waiting for something to shift. And now that it had, the walls no longer seemed to whisper with longing. They hummed with anticipation. I wandered through the rooms, touching the surfaces I had worked so hard to restore, feeling the weight of everything that had changed. The floors no longer sagged, the pipes no longer groaned, the roof no longer leaked. And yet, the house still carried echoes of the past, remnants of every choice I had made to get here, including letting Lucas go. But now he was coming back. The thought sent a shiver through me, equal parts exhilaration and nerves. I had spent so long convincing myself that I was fine on my own, that I didn't need anyone else to complete me. And in a way, I still believed that. I had built this house with my own hands. I had fixed what was broken. I had learned to stand on my own 2 feet. But maybe, just maybe, I didn't have to be alone. I stepped into the hallway, pausing at the spot where he had kissed me for the first time. The memory was vivid, almost tangible, lingering in the air like a ghost I wasn't ready to chase away. I could still feel the warmth of his touch, the way he had looked at me like he understood something about me that I hadn't even figured out yet. And now, he was coming back. I didn't know what that meant. Didn't know what we were, or what we would be when he returned. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of the unknown. I was ready to see where this led. The house creaked softly around me, settling into the quiet evening. Outside, the wind rustled through the trees, carrying the promise of spring, and I smiled, because the house was strong, and so was I.